Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, welcome to the program. It be the 11th of December, Tuesday, and that means Susan is joining us. Hi, Suze.
Yeah, what a surprise.
What? That you're
Nothing.
Yeah, I thank you for your heavy lifting last week. I feel a little more.
You're welcome.
I feel a little more capable. Feel a little more capable this week. I don't know why, but I do. So why?
Don't you think it's because things are finally? I mean, hopefully the Trumpian thing is beginning to disintegrate.
It seems that way, but we
don't know how it's going to disintegrate, so that's fairly scary. But it's amusing to watch no one wanting to work for him.
Well, that's true. That is definitely a sign that a extremely ambitious young man, given a job that usually is resume making, right, says no. And even knowing the president fully expected him to take it. So, I mean, that's a calculation he's made that, it'll destroy my career.
But how hard is it to make that calculation? Nobody leaves that job. Everybody leaves the job, first of all, and nobody leaves it unsullied.
No.
And even if you manage to squeak by with your reputation intact, I can't imagine how, Trump would be screaming at you all the way out the door.
Right.
So I mean, who would take it?
Someone will.
You'd have to be nuts.
Okay.
Kellyanne Conway. I'm putting my money on Kellyanne Conway.
Is that what they're saying now? Is that what
or the obnoxious about to be acting attorney general?
Oh, yeah, except he has no skills at all, except fraud.
Well, but no skills are required.
Oh, that's true.
You're not allowed to do anything in that job, except, take crap.
Oh, man. It's going to get ugly. That's
and
why
at
I'm
least
not...
if that Mac guy took it, he already doesn't have a reputation, so he's got nothing to lose.
Yow.
It's sort of, in a very dark way, amusing.
But not, because this is a guy...
Because it's our country, yeah.
And this is a guy who will take us down with him. That's what's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, we can be happy seeing that clearly Mueller's been doing his work. And all these side, the woman spy who's going to plead guilty today to something.
Guilty, yeah.
That's a side thing. But who knows? If she's pleading guilty, if she's agreeing to cooperate, then that means that she's got some information, definitely, on Russian activities with the Trump campaign. And this might take the NRA down, too, which is a wonderful
I know. That part
damage.
I'm just totally enjoying, that they were all in cahoots together.
Right. So, I mean, it's just this bunch of horrible entities and people and groups, and you see they're all come together. And let's hope they all go down together. But that would include the entire Republican Party.
Well, yeah, goes without saying.
Yeah.
Did you happen to catch wind of the thing of the corporate support for the legislatures about in Wisconsin and stuff?
Yes.
Like Walgreens?
Yes, mostly Walgreens. I know people are saying that, certain entities in corporate America have been feeding money to these Republicans in Wisconsin, and in a quid pro quo kind of thing, in that they get these tax breaks from them.
Tax breaks. Yeah.
Right. And which costs, of course. I mean, Walgreens is the biggie. And I know Robert Reich, the former labor secretary, is tweeting for everybody to boycott Walgreens. Do not shop at Walgreens. It's like giving money to the bad guys. They are, so the Wisconsin legislature or somebody allowed Walgreens to significantly lower the value of their properties in terms of property taxes paid, and allowed them to take the kind of value that could be found in the nearest empty store in their vicinity. Do you believe that?
Well, sure, I believe it.
And consequently, rather than paying, who knows what to whatever locality they're in, this is a case that I guess came out of Madison, where Walgreens there was doing this stuff, and the Republicans in Wisconsin took care of it, so that the taxpayers in Wisconsin end up making up the difference in what Walgreens should be paying. Now, that is one little tiny story that could be repeated with a million different corporate entities, right? In a million different cities, right?
Because and they aren't passing special legislation. That is general. That's a general clause in the tax law for corporations, that the value of your property, shall be based on the value of empty property in that area.
Yeah.
It's not just Walgreens that gets to take it once they put it in there.
Yeah.
And people think they're voting for lower taxes. Really?
Well, yeah. Listen, you have to rethink the wisdom of relying on an average person to choose where their vote goes. I'm not kidding. I know this sounds very anti-democratic, but in the North Carolina situation, where they've been interviewing people whose ballots were, taken
and thrown out,
and then thrown out, or where they hadn't even been filled out, and they say to the person, "But I haven't even filled it out. Don't worry, we'll fill it out." Stuff like that, and that people credulously hand over the ballot. Or one guy I saw interviewed said, they wanted to know, or maybe the reporter said, "Who did you vote for? If I may ask, did you vote for this one or that one?" He said, "Well, I can't remember." And people vote often in ignorance. I must say I've done it myself when it comes to, down ballot races and judges, where I might as well be playing, darts. I don't know. Think, multiply that by millions of people. "Oh, I don't know who I voted for." And then you expect them to understand nuances of, somebody says to them, "I'll lower your taxes." And not realizing that, in fact, in all likelihood, their quality of life will go careening downward, and they won't have anything to pay taxes on. I don't know. I don't know. So
I don't know either. I don't know how you can be living in this country, I do know how you can be living in this country and totally unconcerned about all this crap. It might just be that you're so concerned with getting up in the morning and finding something to eat or making it warm that this is the farthest thing in the world from anything that you're worried about, and doesn't seem to have any import at all.
However, I've also bumped into people who are not in those kinds of dire straits, who simply don't pay any attention.
Oh yeah, I've actually talked to people that say,
Yeah.
"Oh no,
Nah,
I don't do
No.
that." And I go, "What do you mean you don't do that? Are you a citizen of this country? What do you mean you don't do that?"
But see, Susan, that's something I think you have to be taught. Like we were taught, that was a value we learned from our parents. And it's just like Bill and I were talking about, some people don't learn basic things like how to shake a hand. From these are things parents teach, but a lot of people have parents that don't teach values, that don't teach, life skills.
I got it. I totally agree with you, and I'm just going to give you an example that is totally sort of off subject, but is so amazing you can't believe it. 2 days ago, or a week ago, my daughter-in-law found a man wandering in their backyard in the city, which you have to go through a locked gate. Yeah, I mean, she couldn't even figure out how he got back there, and she goes out, on her back deck and yells down, Can I help you? What are you doing? What are you doing back there? He said, I'm trying to deliver a package. She says, well, why don't you come to the front door? What's the address? And he looks at her like she's crazy. And she says, come to the front door. Get out of the yard. Come to the front door. So she goes down and talks to him. This guy is trying to deliver packages. He's a UPS guy trying to deliver packages based on GPS. And she goes, you have to look at the address, sir. See, those numbers go up there. She taught this guy how to read addresses.
Come on. How do you get a job at UPS and not...
Don't ask me. This is a true story because she told me in total disbelief.
God.
So some people aren't taught a lot of stuff.
But that's a young person who only knows GPS and doesn't know that there's even wouldn't be able to find their way out of a paper bag.
Okay, you're figuring out why this happens, right? But this is ridiculous.
This is what technology has gotten us. We're so stupid we don't know. I don't know. Anyway, there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal the other day about employers literally having to teach younger hires how to shake hands.
Ugh.
Here's a guy who works at Certified Retail Solutions, and he says he doesn't mind teaching his workers on the job. He says, quote, you have to teach them how to look someone in the eye and how to shake hands. In fact, Bank of America has developed a national training program to help its employees learn empathy, to be able to read other people's feelings, how they're having a bad day, how you might approach them better. And this is a direct result of technology, of younger people not having a lot of skill in face-to-face, right? Communication.
Right.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. Or not. Here, there's some more. Here, listen to this.
I still don't understand parents. I don't care how much your child, when not, around you, might be, only interacting via device. Still, there should be some parental responsibility, like when you go out to dinner, basic manners, that a parent just takes responsibility for.
Well, I think
you didn't learn how to shake a hand at school.
Well, I think some of these parents are too busy piloting the helicopters they're hovering over their child with.
Here, let me shake that hand for you. Yeah, maybe.
Right. Here, let me shake that hand for you.
It might be it might have germs, darling. Let me take care of this for you.
Oh. I'm laughing so I won't cry. Here it is, Wall Street Journal. And this is because of technology, too. Jobs that require high levels of social interaction are actually growing because that's something robots can't do yet. right? So jobs that humans can actually do, requiring high levels of social interaction, have actually grown 12 percentage points since 1980, and as a share of the labor force. And this is why less social, math-intensive jobs have declined during that same period, because computers can do it. Robots can do it. So work, broadly speaking, has shifted toward an emphasis on things that we cannot do with technology. Humans are going to get the leftovers, okay? Anything that technology can't do, and that will have to do with social interaction at the very time that the same technology is robbing young humans of the skills of human interaction. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's the only, well, of course, scarcity also always drives, skills.
Yeah. Wow. So anyway, this thing back to Walgreens, this is a story that was broken by David Leonhardt, I think, in the New York Times. And he says Walgreens has not said a word about this when questioned. Neither have other corporate sponsors of the Republicans in Wisconsin specifically. Like, here they are. If you want to boycott, Microsoft, Dr. Pepper, Snapple, J.P. Morgan Chase, Humana. And he says, corporations used to play a leadership role in the social fabric of America. They did. They took ethical stances for the good of the country. Right. And that's simply not happening. So he goes into the Walgreens loophole that was created for them so they could avoid taxes. And a few weeks after that loophole was passed by the legislature, Walgreens donated money to the Republican Speaker of the House, and then over the summer donated more to the committee to elect a Republican Senate. Then they gave money to the Senate Majority Leader. All of these are Republicans. They did not donate to any Democrats at the state level. And the message that Walgreens is sending to politicians, as other corporations are, is we don't care if you undermine democracy and steal people's votes, so long as we get to keep our tax breaks. So that's what corporate America is all about these days.
Right.
So just want you to know, this is, when corporations and the government pal around like that's another aspect of fascism, by the way. When they say, here are the warning signs that you're entering into a fascistic situation, it's when the public and private power centers are in cahoots for their own gain, and the people screw them.
Lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they manipulate the people. They manipulate.
Well, and here's part of the problem, as you just pointed out about 3 minutes ago, the people are more and more and more dispensable anyway.
Yeah. But not if you have a democracy. They are in the corporate world, right? But for a governmental system like ours to work, the people are clearly the only thing that's going to save us. You've got to have...
Well, that's right. But right now we have 40% of the people that the president's staff says will believe anything Trump tells them. Well, so now you even have them, just clearly saying, yeah, we just lie to these folks. We feed them whatever we want. They'll believe whatever we tell them. We're not worried about it. It's right out there published for them to read, and they still believe it all.
Yeah. Did you see the letter that a bunch of former U.S. senators?
Yeah, Danforth was one of them. I'm trying to figure out whether that's all the Republicans that signed it because they're the only ones that are still living that remember that.
No,
or
no.
Or whether there's really only 8 Republicans.
No, I don't even think they were
that way about
I don't
the
even
Senate.
think they are that many. We're talking about a letter signed by Republican and Democratic former senators, which was published. Was it published in the Times? In the Washington Post?
Yeah, I think the Times.
No, it's in the Washington Post. I've got it here.
Okay.
It was signed by 44 former U.S. senators. And not surprisingly, the vast majority are Democrats, but there is some bipartisanship here. And I'll just read the littlest bit of it. As former members of the Senate, Democrats and Republicans, it is our shared view that we are entering a dangerous period. And we feel an obligation to speak up about serious challenges to the rule of law, the Constitution, our governing institutions, and our national security. And then they flat out go into the fact that Mueller's investigation is nearing its end. And they are obviously concerned that this president and his enablers and the Republican Senate is going to take the country down, destroy institutions in it. And that any Republicans sign this is amazing.
Yeah, it's 10. 10 Republicans, 2 independents, being Lieberman and Weicker, and the rest were Democrats. So.
Okay. So they say it is a time like other critical junctures in this nation's history when we must engage at every level with strategic precision and the hand of both the president and the Senate. We are at an inflection point in which the foundational principles of our democracy are at stake, and the rule of law and the ability of our institutions to function freely and independently must be upheld. So, okay, so these are senators because they fear this Republican Senate. They fear it will not act in the best interests of the country. And wow, does that say something?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, let me just read the last few sentences. At other critical moments in our history, when constitutional crises have threatened our foundations, it has been the Senate that has stood in defense of our democracy. Regardless of party affiliation, ideological leanings, or geography, as former members of this great body, we urge current and future senators to be steadfast and zealous guardians of our democracy by ensuring that partisanship or self-interest not replace national interest. And as we said, let me read who the Republicans are who signed it. Ben Nighthorse Campbell. He was a Native American senator from Colorado. William Cohen, who was Republican from Maine, but who served as defense secretary for, I'm thinking, Clinton. This one surprised me. Alphonse D'Amato.
Yeah.
Republican senator of New York, who was a real conservative. So that one surprised me.
Well, but you just said it. He's a real conservative.
Okay. John Danforth was Susan's former senator from Missouri.
And an Episcopalian.
David Oh, an Episcopalian bishop.
Yeah.
David Durenberger, Republican of Minnesota. Chuck Hagel, Republican of Nebraska. See, but he too has a history of bipartisanship. I mean, he served in Obama's cabinet. Chuck Hagel did. He was the Secretary of Defense, I believe, for a bit. I don't know. Where's another one? Richard Lugar of Indiana, who was a really classic Republican conservative and an honorable man. Larry Pressler of South Dakota, Republican. And Alan Simpson, who spoke at H.W.'s funeral, Republican of Wyoming, signed it. And then the two independents, Susan mentioned Lowell Weicker of Connecticut, who had been a Republican, and
Lieberman, who had been a Democrat.
So, do you think Mitch McConnell or any of these other Republican senators will even have a moment of...
I don't think they give a rat's ass.
Surely, Susan, some of them must be reachable. And I'll tell you, what?
For
when
2 years you've been saying,
I know.
Surely but no, they aren't.
Yeah, but here's when they're getting reachable. If they see Trump going down, that's when they'll abandon him. They will turn on him as soon as it's clear they won't suffer as much or something. I mean, in other words, they will show no leadership. They will show none. But as soon as they will start peeling off, and they'll peel off totally out of self-interest, not wanting, like rats jumping off the sinking ship. Don't you think? That's how they'll. That's how they're going to, and they'll. Yeah. I don't know.
And I would think that we're nearing that point. I hope we're nearing that point. I mean, I think that they're going to begin to tie up loose ends. They can't even pardon themselves out of state charges for New York. So, I think things are going to start. People are going to start going to jail. People are going to start getting scared. There might be some charges. They're now looking at the family business, and we all know there's plenty to find there.
Oh God, it's a criminal enterprise.
So he might go down like Al Capone on tax charges, and he can't pardon himself out of the federal.
No.
Again, can't. But because he can get pardoned for that, but the state can put him away forever.
Right. And I agree that this guy is likely going from the White House to the big house. He belongs in jail. He's going to end up in jail. But then we're going to have to deal with the 35% of his acolytes who will see this as I don't know what.
Well, they're all armed and ready to, revolt, so. I don't know why people didn't see this coming, by the way. What else was the NRA doing?
Barbara writes, I think when I was talking about these voters who don't know anything, and she says, since you obviously do not know the people of whom you speak, have you read, for instance, books such as Hillbilly Elegy? I do know some people like this, right? I interact with them in that they might work for me in my home. Coming out of Wisconsin, a lot of people that I went to school with were, not wealthy people. I feel like I sort of know these people. So I'm not as much a bubbled elitist.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, we certainly could be bubbled, but we haven't been in our lives. We grew up in a working class community among working class people.
Went to a working class high school. Very few of when I graduated, the vast majority of the class did not go to college. It was
I think it was. I think the number was something like only 10% of our classes went to college.
Yeah, I mean it was, and those were.
And I was one of 3 kids that went out of state.
Yeah. So I think we know.
And that's a class of about what, 500 or 600?
Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, they were our friends. We knew their parents. They worked, a lot of them, in blue-collar jobs. Although, let us be honest, we tended, that self-segregation happens even in that situation where, I'm really trying to go through my friends, and most came from middle-class, I would say, families. But these working class white people, because that's what they were.
Yeah, I mean,
working class
I'm,
white
I'm
people
thinking
were
of my
not,
friends too. Some were the bosses, but plenty of them were the
workers,
bakers and salespeople, and
right. So I mean, they're not that mysterious to me. These people, I've known them. I still know them. But any kind of generalization, as I'm always squawking, is lazy thinking, So to talk about this whole bunch of people, to talk about, coastal elitists as if they're all the same, to me, it's the same kind of crapola as, I go nuts with, generational branding and horoscopes.
Oh, right, right. Like blaming everything on the millennials that we're blaming for everything. I was listening to a very interesting talk on probably NPR yesterday about that, about how the millennials got blamed for everything when it was really just market forces. They didn't kill grocery stores. They didn't kill the housing market. They can't afford to buy anything. They're living in an economy that keeps them from buying homes. They go to the grocery store. It's the senior citizens that go out to dinner every night.
It's those damn baby boomers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, it's always lazy thinking. Always lazy thinking. But anyway, she shares a few things from a review from Amazon on this book. This is a story that many of the upwardly mobile middle class in the coastal areas, often so quick to judge the lifestyles and politics of those people in middle America, has no clue about. I speak from experience as someone that grew up in the heartland but has spent years in often elite circles on either coast. Okay, well, that would apply to Susan and me, too. Grew up
right
amongst the heartland people. That's where we come from, and then ended up in the elite, I guess. And it says here, 2 things struck me most about this book. First, the unflinching yet not judgmental portrayal of the circumstances and of the people involved. It's difficult to write on this subject without either glossing over the ugliness and making warm and fuzzy appeals to idealism and human nature, Hollywood style, or without, on the other hand, descending into attempts at political persuasion and calls to activism. This book manages to paint the picture in deeply moving ways without committing either sin. And second, the author's growing realization, fully present by the end of the book, that while individuals do not have total control over the shape of their lives, their choices do in fact matter. That even if one can't direct one's life like a film, one does always have at least the input into life that comes from being free to make choices. Yeah, every day and in every situation. But
I don't know that I even agree with that. There's a whole bunch of people out there that don't have any choices.
It seems that way. They're in such dire straits.
Having a choice is, begins to be a high-class problem in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're talking about people that don't have choices. Can't decide that, I'll take this job or that job, or I'll live here or there. They just want a job so that they can live somewhere and eat. That's not a choice.
Right. Here's some good news.
Go for it.
Well, and it talks about, this story is about what humans are capable of, and I don't know. This has to do with space. Outer. The Voyager 2 spacecraft has entered interstellar space, according to NASA. That means, this is just mind-blowing. It is the second human-made machine to cross a boundary that essentially divides our solar system from the rest of the Milky Way galaxy. And the other machine is Voyager 1, which is still out there.
I know. I get vertigo trying to think about this.
No,
literally.
I know. Well, who doesn't? They were launched in 1977. They were put on different paths. And they're there to tour all these giant planets, and they are both still operational. They are both still... Voyager 2 now is more than... Okay, watch your vertigo here, Susan. Voyager 2 is now more than 11 billion miles from Earth. It is...
really, it's. I guess it's a testament to my imagination, but I get dizzy.
I know. It is traveling at 34,000 miles per hour. And the scientists in it say that are behind it say, listen to this, here's more vertigo. In about 300 years, these things will still be moving, and they will enter the Oort, O-O-R-T, cloud, a distant reservoir of comets that orbit the sun. And it will then take about 30,000 years for the two spacecraft to come out the far side of that Oort cloud. Jesus. You feel puny?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Inconsequential.
I feel disappeared.
Yeah. No. That's why when I was a kid and Mom was always looking up at the sky, look, I couldn't bear it because it made me, I felt like I disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
It was so huge. We have a call.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, caller.
You knew it was me.
No,
Yep.
you know what?
There.
I'm getting, you're starting to annoy me, Clarence.
Well, I was calling about something else, but you went into space.
I did.
The way I don't get dizzy thinking about the big numbers is I heard like a little tidbit one time that said if the day you're born, you can count one, a second equals one. By the time you get to 1 billion, if you never went to sleep, it was just going 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time you get to 1 billion, you'll be 30 years old. That's how big of a number that is.
Oh my God!
But you're right. That doesn't make me dizzy.
Yeah. Yeah, but that when you think about that, because people think of 1 billion. You say 1 billion, they think million, whatever. But 1 billion is a huge number.
Huge.
But and if it's 11 billion miles away. Wait, you said it takes 30,000 years for it to reach the edge of the Oort cloud.
To get out of the Oort
might not
cloud.
even exist.
Yeah,
by the
well,
time that thing.
Right, that's right. We won't even, the planet, but they'll be, in 300 years they'll enter the cloud, and 33,000 after that they'll get out of it.
Yeah, and I always say when people feel small compared to the the universe, and let's not even talk about the multiverse, I started thinking about quarks. Like with the Large Hadron Collider, how tiny those things are compared to, thinking about an atom compared to an atom, a quark.
I know.
Here's
makes my
what
brain hurt.
Here's what there's so much space between like an electron and a neutron and an atom that if you removed all that space, all of humanity would become the size of a sugar cube.
All right, stop it. I can't. It makes me insane.
To me, that stuff is absolutely
fascinating. Of course it is. Tell us what before we got you into outer space, tell us what you're more earthbound, the reason you called. I'm curious.
Oh, you were talking about middle America, you know, and now people don't understand them, and the first thing that comes to mind is and I think I said this last week or the week before. It's the exact same situation. You were talking about choices, not having a choice. All you got to do is look at the African American community for the last, 150 years.
Yeah. Right.
In urban settings, it's the same thing.
Right. Right.
And I always tell people, you got to communicate these to both groups that you're in the exact same situation. A perfect example of this is the opioid.
Yes.
Crisis compared to the crack epidemic.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. It's just hit, two different communities.
And so, it was. And when it's white, we, it gets our notice. When it's
we wring our hands, although no one's doing much about it there either.
Yeah, they're trying. There's some.
And that's bringing up these two situations and getting those two groups together. Things like unions might start coming back. Things that made the middle class. Instead of having them at each other's throat or thinking, oh, these people and those people.
That's right.
You're the same people.
Yeah, but see, it's always in the interest of the powerful, both private and public sector, to keep those divisions. And that's what Republicans are brilliant at, because they serve corporate interests, and they serve that they gain power by keeping the have-nots at each other's throats. I mean, it's just classic.
The sad thing is, who might change this? The millennials.
I
hope so.
Who's the young woman from New York who just got into the Congress?
Cortez.
Oh yeah.
She's something.
It's like she takes no mess.
Oh.
No mess from anybody.
No.
Yeah, and she has that attitude. I think people like that mindset of the millennials, might change everything, or the direction at least, or at least put brakes on it or something.
Well, let's hope. But meanwhile, the 40% are raising their children to be mini-me's. So, I mean, you still have a whole bunch of people that age who are just as infected with hate and ignorance. Don't you think?
Well, there were some. I was listening to probably NPR, and they were talking. No, it wasn't NPR. It was Sam Harris's podcast.
Yeah.
And he had a woman on there who I think she's Muslim, but she was raised in like Finland or something and educated in Great Britain. But she did a documentary on like Nazis and she went in basically alone to these groups. She was in Charlottesville with them. But she met one guy, and after a young guy, like in his 20s. He's the guy that got kicked out of college for posting a picture during Charlottesville. She met him. They're now friends. He's now completely changed his attitude because he met a Muslim.
Well, one-on-one, does work often. One-on-one, that kind of outreach, can work.
Yeah, and I think parents could talk all day long, and if Facebook is, instead of being a place for places like Facebook for confrontation, changed into something more about just learning more about people or other groups and cultures and all that stuff. Well, internet itself, I think it could usurp, if that's the right word, the ideologies stuffed into the brains by their parents.
Well, meanwhile, let's look at the two people arrested, I believe, yesterday, both in Ohio.
Yeah.
A guy, 21 years old, who was planning an attack on a Toledo synagogue. So inspiring did he find the Pittsburgh Tree of Life massacre. And also in Toledo, and they didn't even know each other, a woman named Elizabeth Lacron, who has posted stuff online praising these mass murderers. She's a pen pal of Dylan Roofs, the guy who killed all those black people while they were praying. Wow. So they're still out there, these young people. I'm just saying.
It's one of those things, like we're talking numbers again, like, quarks versus billions. Yeah, there's 2 people in Youngstown, Ohio, or whatever, in Ohio, but how many hundreds of thousands of millennials don't do that? You know what I mean? These people are dangerous, don't get me wrong, because they get the weaponry and kill people. But you also have to think about all the people who are not doing that.
That's true.
At the same time. How many people aren't, or what woman who was thinking like that is now not because she heard something said by somebody else? That kind of thing.
All right.
That's how I keep my sanity.
All right, Pollyanna. All right. No, I hope you're right.
Talk to you next Tuesday.
Up yours.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, Suze.
Yeah.
This will not surprise you.
Yes.
It is. People are finding out that most people who smoke marijuana are our age.
Oh, I could have told you that.
Well, I could have told you that, but I mean, the people are shocked because
every time they legalize it for recreational, it's not kids that are coming out; it's old gray hairs.
You know what? And even people who didn't smoke it, like I had friends over last night, not 2 nights ago, and one of them is now happily heading over to the marijuana dispensary. And she said, with her eyes bright, they actually had it on sale. It was $5 off. And she's in her 80s. She's in her 80s, and she was not a pot smoker. She is loving it. And they now have, listen to this, in Laguna Woods in California, so many seniors use medical cannabis that the local dispensary charters a bus to bring residents to its Santa Ana location to stock up on supplies, and they give them a catered lunch and a senior's discount. So, where busloads of seniors used to be heading off to a casino, they're now heading off to the pot shop. And these are guys that didn't necessarily smoke, people in their 80s, 90s, retired military. Unbelievable.
Well, it's because it has honest-to-God benefits.
Yes.
And it's better, and the benefits are in many cases, superior to what you could get with a pharmaceutical, another pharmaceutical that had downsides.
And it has fewer side effects. But the fact is that a lot of the supporting evidence is not necessarily there. So people are sort of on their own. They're trying, well, maybe this would work on that, but maybe I should try a tincture, or maybe I should just smoke. It's all sort of, people are experimenting when they go to these places because there hasn't been research, because our government won't allow it. It still says that this is like heroin, a Schedule I drug.
They do allow it, but all substance has to come from one little teeny little grower.
It's just an outrage. Crazy. 33 states now allow it, and yet the research, there's something in the Times about the research is just not there. The social support and legislation is outpacing research. So doctors want to know what works for that as opposed to this, and blah, 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 and they don't have it. They have anecdotal and of course Medicare won't pay for it. So
no,
people
and the only
pay
thing,
out of pocket.
the only thing my doctors have ever said is that they prefer that you ingest it as opposed to inhale it.
Right, just for long. I prefer to inhale it, frankly. We have a caller.
Well, I do too, but that's
don't
a
we have a
different
caller?
problem. That's
Yeah.
because I like to smoke.
Yeah. Hello, caller.
And I don't allow myself. Okay.
Hello. Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been a long-time listener, first-time caller, as a matter of fact. I listened to you since your days on the 1360 bandwidth.
Jeez.
Yeah,
wow. Well, hi.
Yeah, I followed you around, and I'm familiar with,
Boy, you're old.
with you as well. I'm 36.
You're 36. You're young.
I've been into politics since April of 2001. So I got into it at a younger age in my senior year of high school. A friend of mine from high school got me into it.
Huh.
I started off as a Republican, and then I kind of gradually opened my eyes to where I'm at now, which is to the left of Barack, far to the left of Barack Obama, maybe in sync with Bernie Sanders. But,
Geez, and another, if you call us back in 10 years, and you'll be a Trotskyite.
It may be. Very well, but you said what you said earlier, because I was in and out of out in front of the TV. I wasn't able to hear the last 10 or 15 minutes because I was doing errands and whatnot. What you said earlier, like 15 minutes ago, concerning Republicans of the Mitch McConnell, or as I call him, bitch McCockled sort, turning on Trump if they find it feasible to.
Yeah.
My question to you is, and to Susan as well, would it be feasible for them to turn on Trump, since Trump has more of a cult following than the Republicans have ever had before? I mean, not since Ronald Reagan, maybe. And that if they've turned on Trump, would they not be cutting their own throats? And could we, in other words, be looking at the last gasp of a dying party and semblance of dying ideology, mixed in with the cultist, fascistic elements that are strongly incorporated with this
party,
horrible human being we have in the White House?
Yes, right.
Well, that's what you've been seeing. I mean, that's the political calculation they have made thus far, clearly. And that's what's interesting to watch. Whether as the Mueller probe keeps dropping its little pieces, and more people keep scaring the crap out of the people that are still there, whether the political calculus changes. I don't think it's going to change until the very last moment, and then hopefully it'll be too late.
Well,
my last follow-up then would be do you think that being that I just revealed myself as being a Bernie supporter, whom I voted for in the primary in 2016, do you think that the neoliberal establishment served as a breeding ground for this man Trump to have dominated the way he has in the last 2 years?
Jeez, where's that coming from? The neoliberal establishment created Trump?
Like
it's split the vote.
Corporate democratic types who pay fealty to people like ourselves, while at the same time they have just as much of a vested interest in preserving the status quo as the more established right wingers do.
Oh man, you know what? You're making my head hurt as much as Quarks and talking about the solar system.
I mean, because a lot of them don't want. For example, a lot of them don't want Medicare for all or single payer. I do. I think
I do too.
In the long term, it would save It would save us a shit ton of money, in addition to, of course, being the humane. The humane thing to do, in addition to college debt forgiveness and
I'm for all of that. I'm for all of that, but yeah.
The problem is that we all know what the obvious thing to do is. It is Medicare for it's some universal policy. The problem with that in this country is that it kills the insurance business. And which we all think would be grand. I mean, I don't know anyone that's, for the medical health insurance people anymore. They're villains. But I don't know how we get a group of politicians to run them out of business.
Or if we could go back to the pre-Nixon era, where the apparently the pre-Nixon era were insurance companies, HMOs and whatnot. They were required to be not-for-profit.
You mean there was regulation?
Yeah,
regulation. Good God. Yeah. Imagine that.
I mean, they
God
were
forbid.
they were looked at as, like a public utility that people, had a vested interest in their being run appropriately. And no, you shouldn't be siphoning off health care dollars that are meant for health care. Yeah, one would think it was obvious.
Or jacking up prescription medication by 300 or 5,000 percentage points over the course of a 10-year span, a la Martin Shkreli and some other guy.
Or deliberately creating scarcity like they're doing with insulin. I mean, I don't understand how this country doesn't have enough insulin.
Well, I have to tell you, the caller, too, and I agree, there are too many Democrats who are essentially corporatists.
Joe Manchin being one of them.
Oh, hell yeah. But see, here's the thing. You can't, because of the way that we self-segregate, if you have a Democratic Party that is unwilling to take in a Joe Manchin, who votes with us on some important stuff as well, I mean, then I don't know that we ever can attract a majority,
we
in
need
the
a
Senate.
plurality is what we need.
If we had a candidate who actually won the primary, the controversial contested primary, I'm talking about 2016, but in the future, 2020, if someone like Bernie Sanders won the primary, and he was actually able to go out onto a national platform in the deep red states like Mississippi and Alabama and say, listen, I understand you people are living in poverty, but if you want to remove a tremendous burden of debt off your shoulders, you will no longer be, required to pay for your own health care, which you obviously, as of right now, can't afford because you can't afford a decent job with which to pay for it.
Well, God help.
We have these piecemeal Democrats who speak out of both sides of their mouth.
Yeah, but listen.
As I call them.
Stop and think of the
When are you running for office?
Hey, and
no,
also,
I'm really serious. This is clearly something that you spend a lot of time thinking about, that you're parsing very carefully, that you have a tremendous interest and passion for. Why aren't you running for office?
Well, maybe I
don't think I have neither the money nor the connections.
Well, the connections are easy. You start creating them. You start volunteering for other people's campaigns. That's what happens. Start little. You build it.
Well,
I challenge you.
Oh, Susan, you don't know anything about his life or what he's doing, so you don't know.
No, I don't. No, but it just takes a little seed planting.
36. Just to give you a synopsis, 36-year-old, Caucasian male who made some minor bad decisions as far as debt is concerned. Mm-hmm. But I still live with my parents, largely because I have to. College graduate, saddled with $40,000 in debt, and thankfully I went and got my CDL, a trade. But if it weren't for that, I'd be in far worse shape now than I ever was before I even went into school.
Well,
yeah,
I think a lot of people could relate, and let me also say, in regard to somebody like Bernie Sanders guy coming out and gaining that that pinnacle where he's covered in a national election. I think the corporatized media.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No
well,
argument
So
I
just want to say, getting that message out will be very difficult when where people get their information is the corporate media.
That's why I don't have a cable box hooked up to my TV anymore. I use my computer and I go on services like YouTube, your channel, Young Turks, Jimmy Dore Show, and Tom Hartman, those outlets. Those are the sources of information. And I go to the right wing. Even the right wing wants to get a
good
counterbalance.
No, you should.
Uncompromised right wing outlets, not the commercial Rush Limbaugh kinds. Like Ron Paul, for example.
Okay. Hey, I wish you all the best, and I'm so glad you called after all these years. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, it's always great to hear a new voice. And and that sort of gets us to the end here, I think.
Really?
Yeah, Suze. It's
cool.
It's 10 o'clock your time. It's 11 o'clock my time. And
well,
I think
have a nice day.
And you too, my sister. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to drive across town and try and replace my missing car stickers that I thought I would get through the mail because that's easier.
But not in
they
Illinois.
Never arrived.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Oh, it's one of those little annoying stresses. Okay, do it.
That's right. Okay.
Okay. Bye. And thank you all. And I'll be back tomorrow. Hope you will. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.